If you spell applesauce with a B, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with a C, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with a D, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with an E, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with an F, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with a G, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with a H, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with an I, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with a J, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with a K, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with an L, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with an M, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with an N, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with an O, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with a P, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with a Q, you could call that quapplesauce. If you spell quapplesauce with an R, you could call that rapplesauce. If you spell rapplesauce with an S, you could call that sapplesauce. If you spell sapplesauce with a T, you could call that tapplesauce. If you spell tapplesauce with a U, you could call that ripplesauce. If you spell ripplesauce with a V, you could call that applesauce. If you spell applesauce with a W, you could call that wapplesauce. If you spell wapplesauce with an X, you could call that zapplesauce. If you spell zapplesauce with a Y, you could call that yapplesauce. If you spell yapplesauce with a Z, you could call that zapplesauce. If you spell zapplesauce with an A, you go back to applesauce.